You ready? Okay, this is
Okay,
casual session, okay, where during the um, discussion, maybe the participants can also ask doctor, or maybe
sure.
yes, they can also write in the chat box. So
Yes, definitely.
we will check, okay, at the chat box. So
Mm.
I think without further delay, maybe doctor can start, and our session today will start from 10 until 12.
Okay,
Okay.
all right.
Okay, so I will pass the floor to you.
All right. Thank you
Okay.
very much. All right. Assalamualaikum and good morning, everybody. Okay. So, let's see. I'm supposed to talk on language guidance on producing manuscript, okay, journal manuscript, and the focus will be the research methodology. So, don't be stressful. So, this is a very casual session. So, if you're stressful, then I'll be stressful too. So, don't. I bet looking at the list, you're very experienced writers, and I don't think you have problems. So this is just going to be a refreshing course. So when people ask me, when I was asked, when Dr. Naginda approached me on doing this one, the first thing I say, yes. And then later on, it hits me. I mean, I got, what shall I tell you? What shall I share? And then I got panic button because why? Because there will be a lot to tell you. And I was like doing, And finally, I come up with 60 slides, being ambitious, but not too ambitious, 60 slides. So don't worry, the slides will be shareable. Okay, so what I'm going to do would be, I'm going to bank on my experiences, as one would be fellow writers, right? When I write, what do I do? The second part would be when I edit my work or other people work as a language editor, what am I looking at? And the third one would be as a as the reviewer, what I will be looking for. What are the things that influence my decision, all right? So bear with me, I'm going to present now. I hope that, and then I'm going to go, the session will be conducted into 4 subsections. The first one will be the content. Second one will be the language, and the third one, organization, and the tips. What are the tips? Okay, if I go too fast, stop me. It's just that sometimes when I get excited, or I just want to finish as fast as I can, I'll be like a bullet train. So remind me to slow down. Right, then when, let's say, for example, as the writer, when you're writing the methodology section, what you need to do will be, is very imperative for you. Okay, before that, I'm sure that you know what is the content, right? The research design, the sample, participant, the instrumentation, procedure, the data analysis. So, and then the ethical consideration, validity and reliability. So you know the content. I wouldn't touch the content because you know what to do. So before you write, if you want to produce a good methodology content, what you need to do would be, do this one first, do the content first. So it could be not in sentences, it could be in, let's say, point form. All right. So I'm going to show something like this. So yes, okay, right. So you must have the content template. So this is my content template to make it easier for you. Or sometimes you would have the diagram, right? Or might be we would have the scribble. We must have the draft. So finish that one first. In order for you to write clearly, what you need to do would be, you need to organize your content first. At least do a content template. A content template, it can be, it's up to you. How are you going to do it? Are you going to do it like this? Are you going to draw? Are you going to scribble? But it must be visible. But you must be thorough. Because why? Because when you're writing methodology section, you must be clear. Because why? Because you are going to explain your research design, your methodology, research design, how you choose the participant or respondent, how are you going to use, how did you choose the instrumentation, the procedure, the data analysis, everything you need to explain to someone who's not familiar with your work. Someone who's not familiar with your work would be the the journal reviewer, right? The reviewer, they will be looking at, okay, look at the content. because I think that the methodology section would explain whether your research is credible or not credible. So you've got to be very careful with this one. So in order for you, whenever I want to write whenever I want to write a methodology section, what I need to do would be I need to clear my mind. Okay, what am I going to write? So this is the template. So I'm sure. So I'll be looking at my template. I'll be looking at, okay, I'm going to do this one concurrently. I'm going to do this one first, second, third. Okay, how am I going to analyze which analysis that I'm going to do? How am I going to evaluate or measure the data? Right. So complete this one first, and then this is priority. So this is the content template. So make sure that you have everything, put it together. Even though, let's say, for example, you are not sure, just put it there. And then let's say, for example, if you're sure about research design, put research design. And then you can start going to the language section, right? And then I would leave content first, right? And we are going to go to the second one. The second one would be the language, right? When you are talking, when you're writing, what I realized would be when I always make this, I also make the same mistake too. The language when I write methodology section, there will be these particular errors that keep cropping in the word that I edited or the word that I reviewed. The first one will be the subject-verb agreement, tenses, active or passive voice, the transition, and the vocabulary. Transition and vocabulary would come, okay, transition especially would come, I think, the last one when we want to make it, when we edit our work. Okay, then we are going to go to subject-verb agreement. Okay. Subject-verb agreement, sometimes because we have such long phrases, we forget. You must remember subject would have to agree with the verb. The subject is singular, the verb must be singular. The subject is plural, the verb must be plural. So sometimes when we're writing, we're not sure. Because if we have long intervening phrases like blood and saliva was collected, so that is wrong. It should be were collected. So, and then let's say, for example, the second one, okay, because we have long intervening phrases, we forget that is it singular or plural. So if you have long intervening phrases, how to improve that? Cut it into 2 sentences or 3 sentences, right? Okay, and then I'm going to go to the third one. The third one will be the conjunction, when we have the conjunction in addition, together with, as well as. So we forget, as well as saliva, we forget that, oh, we thought that and. So we thought that would be plural, but it's actually singular, all right? And then if you look at that one, what we can do would be, if you look at aggression or suicidal behaviors was reported, because it is wrong, because we have to look at aggression there. So, we look at this one, we thought that it's aggression, but it's actually suicidal behaviors, plural. So what we can do would be, you just need to revise that one. So for example, you can put aggression or suicidal behaviors were reported, or suicidal behaviors or aggression was reported, because the noun nearest to the verb is the one determined whether it's singular or plural. So I'm going to go fast here, sorry. Okay, this one, right. This one would be, for example, criteria. We thought, most of us thought that criteria would be singular, but it's actually plural. So make sure this one, so I've just skipped this one. I'm sure that you just need to be careful. Is it singular or plural? If it's singular, singular noun, singular verb. Plural noun comes with plural verb. All right. And then the word with, this one, each of the participants, each, neither. All right, remember, singular. All right, all, plural. Then none will be singular. So this is and then we would have elliptical construction. Elliptical construction would be, for example, it can be inferred. The patient was diagnosed with cancer and chemotherapy session started. So it should be the patient was tested and their data and analyzed. So it would be better. All right. And then the word of, the list of potential student participants. Remember the list. We are talking about the list, not potential study participants. So the list is singular, so make sure it's was. And a popular mistake would be the total would be singular, a total would be plural. So remember that one, the total with the number, a total would be the accumulated, all right? And then that would be subject for agreement. That's very easy, all right? And then sometimes we make mistakes, all right? What we need to do would be just look at our sentences and then just pay attention to that one. Another one would be the tenses. I'm sure that you don't have difficulties, but most of novice writers, or sometimes I consider myself a novice writer, I would be confused sometimes. Should I use simple past tense? Should I use simple present tense? Right? Remember, methodology section, usually you are talking about something in the past. If you describe something in the past, simple past tense, right? But if you're describing something that is a fact, something that happens, something that you still use, so that would be a simple present tense. For example, you can use this one. The researcher used a qualitative methodology. They recruited the participant. You know that you talk about things, all right? The researcher talks about things in the past. So just something in the past, right? If you want to talk about something in the past, if you want to write about something in the past, it should be written in simple past tense. But if you're talking about a method, right? It means something that COCA is a monitor corpus. That means that is a fact, existing fact, standard procedure. So that would be simple present tense, right? So this is simple. So in methodology section, so it's either you use simple present tense or you use simple past tense, right? So if you describe the whole procedure, it will be simple past tense. If you describe something that is existing, right, something that is a fact, all right, that would be simple present tense. So that would be a combination of tenses. And then you'll be asking me, what about the voice? Because if you look at the voice, if let's say, for example, is it active and passive voice? So what is the difference between active and passive voice? Later on, I'll be showing you what is active voice, what is passive voice. Active voice will be emphasizes on the doer. Passive voice is emphasizes on the action. So usually if we use active voice, we would personalize the information. And then if we use passive voice, we would depersonalize the information. So it indicates academic and professional tone. However, time is changing. Some of the journals encourages active voice. So when you're writing, remember, when you're writing methodology section or any section, you're writing for the intended reader. The reader would be the journal's reviewer and the journal editor. So the journal would decide. Okay, later on we will be looking at some of the examples, all right? And then, all right, so this is a passive voice, all right? I'm sure that this is something that is familiar. Jen wrote the report, so this is active because it emphasizes on Jen. So it is passive if the report was written by Jen, right? So that would be active and passive, right? I'm going to go to the next one, right? How do you form the passive voice? So it's simple. That's, for example, the sample, the subject, plus verb to be, plus the past participle. So the sample, we know the verb will be, if it's a present tense, then we know that sample is singular plural. If the subject is plural, then let's say the students are, all right? And then let's say, for example, here will be past participle, all right? Okay, so the interview was recorded, the findings were tabulated, the patients were separated. Okay, we're going to go to the next one. So this is just a refresher course, okay? And then, so this is active and passive voice. If you look at this one, the first one would be, we're talking about asbestos abatement teams will remove large chunk blood, and then you know that this one will focus, okay, the sentence focuses more on the doer. So this is active. How can you change this one? So you can change this one. You look at the look at the action. Large chance of asbestos laden, right, materials will be removed from the hallway and the second and third floors by asbestos abatement teams. So the doer will be the last one. So how are you going to change from passive to active? So you put the emphasis on the doer, all right, and then definitely then the focus will be on the doer, right? Okay, and then this is, for example, how do you know that you're using active and passive voice? If, let's say, for example, in one article, the writer or the author the researcher use a qualitative methodology, so the focus will be on the doer, the researcher. So that would be active. But if, let's say, for example, a qualitative methodology was used, so the focus would be on the action. So meaning that this is passive, right? So when people say, what is the voice that you are using, or what is the tone that you're using, oh, I'm using an informal tone. So if you're talking about informal tone, definitely active voice. If you're saying that, oh, I will be using professional tone, so that would be passive voice, all right? So can you change? Can you just do active voice or just passive voice? Yes, totally. It depends on the journal. Can you make active voice and passive voice again? As usual, my answer would be yes, you can. As usual, the answer would always be it depends on the journal. All right. And then I'm going to go to the next one. Would be, this is the example of passive voice. So if you look at this one, CRL 1719 will see that. Because why? Because they want to emphasize on the action where love were incubated. So this is passive voice, right? So how to, okay. So then we are going to go here. Then the question would be, are we using active or passive in method section or methodology section? Usually in normal cases, we use passive voice. Okay, because why? Because we focus more on the action, right? For example, a catheter was inserted for post-operative bladder irrigation rather than we inserted a catheter, because we want to see we want to focus on the action, not the doer. But again, as I said before, the focus of method section would be the clarity. All right. So if you feel your text is clearer when you use active voice, and that voice is dominantly found in the article of the journal that you choose, then that will be okay. As I said before, as long as the text is clear and comprehensible, you can do active or passive voice, right? Okay. And the decision, as I said before, depends on the journal of your choices. Or you can do active, the first sentence active, the second sentence will be passive. If, let's say, for example, if you study the target journal, all right, I'm sure that when you write, you have a target journal, all right? And in that target journal, there will be collections of articles. Read the article, look at the tone, right? The tone is what is the voice being used by the authors. So if, let's say, for example, the article would be predominantly, the articles in that journal are predominantly written in active voice, then you can use active voice. Okay, and the next one would be, okay, let's see. Okay, and then here would be, for example, in the instruction, right, to the authors of the target journal or the journal of your choice. If the instructions say the active voice, right, in this we prefer active voice, then definitely. Because why? Because now the current practice would be they want the academic paper to be easy to read and understand. And usually it can be, for how do you know, it can be found in the journal instruction for the author. For example, let's say if this is coming from behavioral ecology, when it says that beginning on the separate page, the text should be clear, readable, and concise. The first person voice is preferable to the impersonal passive voice. So meaning if you're writing for behavioral ecology, or the journal which state that particular instruction, definitely you have to write active voice. I think that let's say for example, the active voice would be, let's say the sentences which use active voice would be I think more than the sentences which use passive voice. Okay, and then what you okay, okay, and then definitely I always like to have this sort of template or this sort of reminder or this sort of checklist, right? And then if you look at this one, look at the subsection, right? The subsection, and look at the tenses. What would be the tenses that you plan to do for this particular section? And the same template you can do in, let's say, introduction, literature review, or after this, the discussion, findings and discussion, and conclusion. So why? Because you want to remember, okay, what tenses are you going to use? What voices are you going to use? Let's say this example is depending on you. So because you are the writer or your team is the writer, so you can use simple past tense, simple present tense, passive or active. So if when you're describing the participants, you're going to use simple past tense, and then you're going to use the voice will be passive, or might be you want to use the voice will be active. So this one, as I said before, this one you can manipulate, you can, let's say, adapt to your usage. I always use this one to remind me, okay, what are the tenses that I do? Usually I like to have checklists for each section. So just to remind me, I'm doing the right track. I'm on the right track. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? So if you don't have question, and then we are going to look at this one. So if you look at this one, if you look at this one, and you can look at this one, the first sentence, right? Passive, second sentence, right? And then you put AVL contains, oh sorry, this AVL contains, so this is active sentence, right? Okay, in simple present tense, right? And then so you can see that from here, this is a combination of active and passive sentences, sorry. Then we're going to go to example 4. Example 4 would be using still active simple past tense, right? Okay. And then active sentence, active voice, all right? And then passive voice. So meaning that in, let's say, in the subsection, you can mix. The first sentence can be active, the second sentence would be passive, the third sentence could be passive. But once again, everything that you write, because you're writing for your audience, it must be depending on the journal of your choice. All right. So then I'm going to go to, okay. So far, am I going too fast? This is easy, right? Is this easy? Okay. So meaning that, am I still on the presentation? I think that I'm still on the presentation, right? Dr. Aslinda, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. So I'm just checking. So, right. So then the next one would be the transition. So the transition would be, so there will be 4 types of transition: the additive transition, adversative transition, causal transition, sequential transition. You do not need to, so you do not need to know additive transition, but it nice to know. It's just to add or referencing information. Adversative transition will be to indicate there's a conflict, there's a disagreement. Causal transition will be you're going to put cause and effect over there. There's a relationship, there's a consequences. And sequential transition will be the sequential of information and the overall structure of the paper. All right, I'm giving you the example here, so you don't have to worry. Okay, just additive here is saying that you're going to indicate a new information, you're going to highlight the information, you're going to refer something that just mentioned, or you want to add similar situation. Right, so what you need to do would be this one. Usually, the transition part, I'm not sure about the rest. So what I usually do would be transition, I would save it to I call it beautification or professionalism stage or beautification stage. Because what? You have the sentence, you want to make it more credible, you want to make it more stronger. So this is the thing, additive transition. So for novice writer like me, right? So this is very handy, right? So what you need to do will be just remember this is what you are going to use. Okay, later on, the transition would come handy when you want to make your sentences more credible, or the beautification stage. I call it beautification stage to make make it look more professional, right, and more credible. So these are the things that you can do, and later on, you don't have to memorize. So you can later on, I will give you the slide. You can refer to the slide whenever you're writing, and then you can say, "Oh, I'm going to use furthermore." Oh, I'm going to use one example of this phenomenon. All right. I'm going to use that with regards to blah, blah, blah. So you can use this one. As your, what you call, writing repertoire grows, you don't need this one anymore. All right. So this is come handy when you're not sure. All right. And then we would have adversative transition. You want to show conflict, you want to show contradiction, you want to show concession or dismissal. Okay. So this one will be the adversative, however, right? You want to say that there are many studies have been done about this one, however, right? When I say that, people will be saying that, okay, I know about, I'm familiar with the language used in research method. On the other hand, or so that will be showing you. So this is the adversative transition. So if you want to contrast or showing conflict, these are the things that you can use in contrast. On the contrary, on the other hand, as I said before, this one would be as the reference. Okay, if you're not sure, use this one and make sure that sometimes the transition, you must make sure of your idea. Are you contrasting the idea? Are you contrasting, let's say, the two opinion, right? Or the facts, or I mean the studies, the findings, right? So are you conceding a point? Are you dismissing an argument? So these are the things that you should use, and be careful of using the wrong one, right? The wrong transition, because if you use the wrong transition, the impact will be different, right? And then we are going to go to causal transition. Causal transition would be to show cause and effect, purpose, consequences, condition, right? For example, since I'm attending the course, since I do not know what to do, all right? I listen to Dr. Latisha due to the fact that she is the speaker, even though I don't understand what she's trying to say. So that would be cause and causes or reason, explaining the condition. So this is the purposes, and these are the, let's say, the transition. Otherwise, under those circumstances, that being the case, in that case, okay. And this is the example. So as I said before, what we need to do would be when there are some words that, let's say, if you're not sure, consequently, might be because you have used the word consequently from the beginning. So it would be nicer if you put therefore, thus, accordingly, as a sequence. If you just put consequence, if I just write, right, in my method section, and I will put in consequently, and later on the review will be saying that I'm not sure the writer miss or doctor consequently, right? So you need to show you have a wide range of a repertoire of this transition, all right? And then I'm going to go to the sequential transition. So this is very important, especially for procedure, right? So organize your paper by numerical sequence. You want to show the continuation in thought or action. You want to refer to previously mentioned information, and you want to indicate digression, and you want to conclude or sum up your paper. So how does sequential transition look like? So this one, initially, secondly, thirdly, first of all, to start with, right? And then if you want to summarize, once again, summarizing to repeat as stated before, as was mentioned earlier. As I said before, if you have mastered all this transition repertoire, you don't have to look at this one. But this one come handy because when we are stuck. Sometimes transition, we are stuck. We're not sure. We keep using the same transition all over again, right? So we become repetitive. So it's nice to add new transitions, right? So this one would be okay, right? Remember, summarizing this data, it becomes evident what about what. Then you can change, you can use your sentence. So as I said before, my advice, this is my experience, okay? I would use the transition would be after I wrote everything, because I want to make it more comprehensible, more credible, okay? All right. So I'm using 30 minutes of your time. Are you still okay? It's easy, isn't it? Right. Then I'm going to go to vocabulary. I think that everybody is familiar with this one. So you must have the phrase bank, the vocabulary, okay? And it comes handy, especially if we are not familiar, if we just start writing, if you start writing and we forget what to, the vocabulary that we use, right? This comes handy. So this one I took from Phrase Bank Manchester, right? So this one to describe purpose of testing in order to do something, to enable, to allow. Because sometimes I find out that some of my students, they would find difficulty to write because they do not have the vocabulary. So as I said before, all right? So writing is a process. Later on, we look at writing as a product. Writing is a process. So what you need to do would be, if you're not sure, you have a phrase, but it's not a sentence. You have a phrase, just put to enable us to do the experiment. We, blah, blah, blah. To control the test, what is done. Because you know what is why your experiment was done. So use this one first, right? Just to eliminate your writer block. Because I know that some of us, the sentences must be perfect first. Then we can go to the second one, right? So for those who need to have a sentence that is, a lack of vocabulary, so you can use this one, right? And the same thing goes for outlining similarities. The setup we use can be found, is reported, is detailed. So as I said before, these phrases are just examples, right? You just use it, and later on, when you're familiar on, if you have, let's say you found better phrases, then you would substitute the final one with that particular one. So this is to get you started, right? Then when you want to describe the apparatus or method used, then you can use the instrument used. Adopted, employed, right? X was obtained, X was kindly provided or supplied by. So these are the vocabulary that is handy for you to write, okay? And definitely this one, reporting software use, right? You can use the data were obtained, the data were collected using what? Free software downloaded from where was used or was adopted to blah, 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 right? And then this one would be reporting customization performed. X was tailored, X was customized. As I said before, there will be a lot of phrases, okay? What you need to do would be, you just choose the one that you need, all right? If you do not need these phrases, you have your own phrases, that would be fine, all right? And we are going to go to 40. This is formulating equation, theories, and theorem. The problem can be outlined. The problem is ruled. The theorem asserts. The theorem states that. Remember, this one would be just the phrase to start you with your writing. Remember, you have the phrases, your phrases in your content. So start putting that, start combining those phrases, right? And I'm going to go to explaining why you choose your specific method, model, equipment, or sample. All right, so this is why you choose, the aim of choosing this one. Why the method was chosen? Because it was the most practical, rapid way to do this one, right? So I'm going to go to the next one. So this one will be just as I said before, phrases. This one will be explaining the preparation of sample. We use reliable, innovative, classic, traditional technique based on the recommendation of whom, of which study. Why was prepared using the similar procedure as for X, right? So then, okay, this one would be the procedure, the outlining selection procedure for sample, the survey, the traditional classical normal usual approach to sample collection is what? Okay, so this is the phrases that you can use, as I said before. So I'm going to go, so this one would be when you want to indicate the time frame, the past tense or the present tense. Initial study were made when it's in the past, right? X was collected, right? Prior to do this one, we did this one. So this one would be, the tenses would be in the past, right? Okay, and then this one would be when you're doing the general process. If you want, if you're doing the present tense in the first step, during the first step in the initial stage of the process, right? Okay, and then here would be if you want to indicate the care must be taken, right? So you can use extreme caution must be taken, used for example, if let's say, for example, if you're doing experiments or survey with, let's say, how many, let's say the study is on a suicide ideation, right? So meaning that when you talk about suicide ideation, the thought of committing suicide, you must have taken extreme caution must be taken. So you must talk about the ethical consideration, right? So this come handy. Considerable great care must be taken or exercised when implemented the experiment or the study and so on, right? Okay, and this is, let's say, for example, definitely when you are doing your methods, you must describe the benefit of your method, right? And then so this one will be usually written is in the present simple present tense, right? Okay, then we are going to look at okay, let's see, outlining alternative approaches. So definitely sometimes the journal require you to, let's say, might be that would be other alternative approach. So then this is how you write it. An alternative solution, though with high overhead, slightly more complicated. You're saying, yes, there's other approaches, but they are a little bit complicated, right? They are expensive, right? Because why? Because you want to say that your alternative, your approach or your solution or your, let's say, your design is the best one for that particular context, right? And then definitely you got to how the data is going to be analyzed, okay? So to assess what's used, changes were identified, calculated, the correlation difference between X and Y was tested, the first step of analysis investigated, examined, confirmed, highlighted the impact of something, right? So that would be the language part, okay? The language part of the presentation. So that would be 38 minutes, okay? Yes, not say students, friends or colleagues, or could I say adik-adik, because I'm sure that most of you are younger than me. So is there any question? So that would be the language part. Right. So we have summarized. Yes, Dr. Aslinda.
Yes, saya yang ada soalan.
Yes, Dr.
Ada.
Aslinda.
Okay, a little bit on, can you explain causal transition just now? Causal transition in writing.
Causal transition. Kejap ya, Dr. Aslinda, because I need to look at we are going to go to transition, right? Okay, let me see. Transition is 25 to 35. This one, right? The cause and effect, right? Okay, to express purpose, consequence, and condition. Okay, let's look at this one. Okay. For example, let's say that, for example, if you look at this one, the sample, the example, since the original sample was too small, researcher called for more participants. So meaning that sincere to show the cause. So might be in the pilot study, the group the pilot, the participant were too small. I mean, not many participants there, right? Due to the budgetary demand, so due to, right, funding will be cut in half. So this is to show the reason, okay? Or if you want to explain the condition, unless this condition change, more will need to be done as long as there is a condition, right? Unless let's say COVID-19, unless the students, let's say, unless COVID-19 still persists, then what would happen? So that would be, let's say, if the pandemic continues, right, there will be a lot of studies demanding, there will be a lot of studies concentrated on that particular pandemic. So that will be explaining the condition. Showing the effects of the result will be when you do something, what's the effect? For example, let's say Dr. Aslinda, if someone say to you, right, Dr. Aslinda, if someone insult you on Twitter, do you have Twitter account, Dr. Aslinda?
Twitter tak ada, doktor.
Facebook?
Facebook, yes.
And then someone insulted you and you insulted the person back. What would be the consequences? What would be the effect? And then the effect would be you'll be called by our VC. And then you'll be saying that, Dr. Aslinda, this is just example. I know that we are being recorded. This is just an example, right? Okay. And then we can say that, and then you can say that as a consequence, Dr. Aslinda is being called to the HEA, something like that, right? So cause and effect. So what is the causes? What is the effect as a result of doing this as a consequence, right? And the purpose would be, what is the purpose? For the purpose of the following standard. What? Or might be for the purpose of following the standard, the SOP was observed, right? With the current state of pandas in mind, this study focused on preservation. So that would be the purpose, for the purpose. And let's say, for example, highlighting the importance of circumstances, you're saying that, otherwise, this effect will continue into the future, all else being equal. So that would be highlighting the importance of that particular consequences. Otherwise, this effect will continue, all being equal. So that would be the causal transition. Right, Dr. Aslinda, am I being clear here? So causal transition would be when you want to say that this is the cause of something, this is the purpose of doing something, this is the importance of the circumstances, this is the purpose, this is the effect, this is the result. And you can use this transition to combine with your phrase.
Okay, faham, clear, doktor. Terima kasih.
Right. So as I said before, the transition, this one, usually, I'm not sure about most of you, some of my students, sometimes I find it hard because sometimes if I want to think about transition at that particular time, or which transition that I'm going to use, am I going to use additive, causal, blah, 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 it would hinder the speed of my writing. So what I usually do will be transition, I will put when I'm editing the writing. Right, because then I could say, what is that sentence? What do I need? Oh, do I need to put the causes? Do I need to highlight the importance of this nature? Do you want to take a break, Dr. Aslinda? I think that, or do any one of you want to, let's say, ask? I mean, this is just a discussion. So just a sharing session. There's no right and wrong. I'm not imposing my view, so this is just something that I find it worthy to share, right?
Okay, untuk peserta ada apa-apa soalan boleh ditanyakan sekarang.
Yes, Sina, methodology, Dr. Aslinda, is the easiest one to write, if I'm not mistaken. Because why? Sebabnya the most important thing, you must start the first one, the content. You dah ada content, look at the content, kalau ada lah, if you like some, if you have, let's say, if you have the content, if you have the diagram, the thought diagram, to put the diagram in front of you, right? And then what you need to do would be just write section by section. Later on, I'll be going for organization. And then what you need to remember would be, remember the subject verb agreement. This come handy in the later stage would be the language. Active, passive, the language. Usually what I ask my student to do, or my friends to do, or my co-researcher to do would be just write first. Because if, let's say, for example, because some of the writers, they are hindered with, sometimes, do you agree? We're being hard on ourselves. In the sense that we can say, tak boleh tulis lah because it's too hard, right? My approach would be, look at your content, just write first. Methodology will be simple. It's going to go to subsection, and then it's going to be the flow, right? And then I just write everything. And then what you need to do would be, the next one would be, as I said before, writing is a process. The first one, the first draft. And then we go to the second draft. The second draft would be, later on I'll be talking about the organization, right? Okay, so this is the language. This is the areas that I usually notice when I write, or when I review a paper, when my friends ask me to look at the paper, when I have to review paper whether it's accepted or not. When I look at the methodology section, I'll be looking at tenses, and then the most important thing would be, is it clear? Or the clarity is important, because you must be structured. And in order to write a structured, a clear method section, you need to be clear in your head. So that's why the first thing you need to do would be the outline, the content. The content must be there. It must be clear. You must be clear of what you want to say or what you want to write. Because when you are writing, right, you are writing to the language, sorry, to the reviewer and to the editor. They must understand what, they must understand your writing. Right. I think, Dr. Aslinda, I talk too much.
Okay, setakat ni okey lagi, Doktor. For participants who would like to have this recorded session, please put your email address at the chat box. So pihak hostia will email to you. Okay? Okay. Thank you.
Shall I continue, Dr. Aslinda?
Maybe want to have a break, 5 minutes break?
Okay. All right. So I will stop sharing, isn't it? So if I stop sharing, I'm afraid of the connection.
Before that, maybe ada question sekejap ya, Doktor. Kita tengok dekat.
Can I drink water for a while?
Yes, there is a question at the chat box, Doctor. My question will be out of the scope of the discussion, but quite confused with the use of the first pronoun, first person pronouns in writing research method.
Okay.
For example, sentence 1.
We
interviewed 20 villagers and they analyze the data using thematic analysis. Or the researchers interviewed 20 villagers and we analyze the data using thematic analysis.
Okay, let me okay. Okay. So okay, as I said before, Dr. Aslinda, I can see because I'm sharing, so I can see the chat box. As I said before, the voice would depend on the journal, the target journal. Because certain target journal, they don't allow the researchers, but then there are, lately I can see that many journal permit writers to use we, I, the first person, right? Pronoun. Yes, you can do that, but depending on the journal. So that's why when you are writing, my advice would be always, you must remember the one thing, you write for the journal. You can't simply write for the whole, for all the journals. No, you can't do that. What you need to do first of all, it's like this. If you want to be accepted to that particular journal, you must choose what journal. Determine the target journal. What is that journal? One journal in particular. And look at the instruction to the author. Right? What is the instruction? Sometimes it's stated where you prefer the first voice, and then you can use the first person pronoun and so on. But sometimes it's not stated. How do you know when to use pronoun they, we, I? Look at the article. Later on, what you need to do will be you need to study the articles in the journal, at least 5 articles, minimum 5. Because why? Because you want to see the language and style of that particular journal. Right. So that would be that. Whether you can use I, you, we, or it's not you, sorry, I, we, or they, or the researchers, the study, all right? So the investigators, depending on the journal of your choice. Dr. Sinda, do I answer your question?
Thank you, Doctor, for the question. Okay, so I guess we can take a break, Doctor, 5 minutes.
Okay.
Dr. Latisha,
Yes.
since you're unable to see the chat, can I please add on a little, can I please make
Yes.
some comment to Mr. Christie's inquiry? Just a little bit, since you're unable to see the chat, right? Okay, he has written this sentence as like this. The researchers interviewed 20 villagers and we analyzed the data using thematic analysis. Here he has used the third person and the first person pronoun. I'm of the opinion that we should be consistent with our pronouns, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you please elaborate that? Because, yeah, I think he needs a little
Okay, why
clarification.
don't I start sharing first? Okay, I start sharing, then
Yeah.
I'll be looking at that one. Okay.
Yeah, that would be useful. Yeah, number 2, sentence 2.
Okay, sentence 2. Okay, I'm going to go to the chat now. Okay, let's see. Okay. First person, third person, around the search into the conversation. So let's say, for example, the research. So if you're doing this one, are you saying there are 2? I think that the first sentence, which one of you use? The first one. The first one, Christine, because the researcher interviewed 20 villages and they analyzed the data using thematic analysis. Right. If you use the second one, the researcher interviewed 20 villages and we analyzed the data. Who are we? So it seems that there are 2 parts. Am I right? One will be the researcher. One is we analyze the data.
Yeah.
Am I right? And then definitely the first one. All right. Yeah. And then the second one, because sentence 2, the researchers interviewed 20 villages and we analyze the data. And then it becomes the ethical concern. Who are you? I mean, what about the researcher? Since the researcher, I mean, the study the study does not belong to you. Why are you writing the study? Why are you writing the journal article? All right. So if, let's say, for example, if I'm the reviewer, I would reject. Because why? Because ethical concern. Because the researchers interviewed the 20 villages and another person analyzed the data. And then who's going to write the article? So it becomes ethical practice is not ethical, right? But then the answer will be the first one. The researchers interviewed 20 villages and they analyzed the data using thematic analysis, full stop. Right. C capital letter. All right. Then all we can do would be, if you put we interviewed 20 villages and analyzed the data using thematic analysis, that would be okay. Right. Or thematic analysis, or the 20 villages were interviewed, right? And the data was analyzed using thematic analysis. Done. So do I answer your question? Remember one thing, Christy, you will not be there in front of the reviewer or the editor, right? You cannot explain You cannot say that, can we use this one? No. So you have to be very clear of that one. Who interviewed the villagers? Who analyzed the data? All right. Thank you for the question. All right, I like it.
Thank you, Dr. Latisha.
Thank you, Dr. Latisha and Dr. Nagida. Is there any more question from the participant?
Oh, can I get, okay.
No. So far, no question, Doctor.
Yes, there's no question, Dr. Linda.
So far,
So
no.
I thought the last one would be the organization, right? So the part about writing would be, I feel that you don't need to listen to, you need to write, straight away write. If you can't write, let's say methodology section, I'm talking to myself, I should write every day, okay? And then, let's say, for example, just go to subsection. If you think that the methodology section is very hard, go for subsection. Might be the first one. Today you're going to write research design. Then the next one you're going to write about the instrumentation, right? If you want to do that one. So writing, I think writing should be consistent, and don't worry about making mistake or writing what they call incomprehensible work, because it's a draft. It's supposed to be incomprehensible. It's supposed to be not beautiful, isn't it? Right. So that's why I said that writing is a process. It's a process over there. And lastly, before we end, is going to be a product. How are we going to make it beautiful, credible? Dr. Aslinda, I'm so sorry, I cannot take a break.
It's okay. Maybe I think
The show must go on.
yeah, the show must go on.
Okay, so let me see this one first. Okay, this one. So this one will be the organization, isn't it? So in method section, you must organize your content chronological, right? Because it must go from the first one, the subsection. Present your content in subsection. Sometimes the journal does not have subsection, but you can make it into paragraph. But in your mind, put it in subsection, because I think that I always feel that if you have to write the whole chunk, it's going to be overwhelmed, right? It's going to be gigantic. So put it put it in subsection. So organize the section from most important thing to the least important and write your first draft, right? In your subsequent drive, what you need to do will be you need to ensure your writing is clear and logic. So this is how we're going to do it. The first one, you must have the outline. Remember the content that we talk about, the outline. So let's say for the outline would be, let's say if it's just a paragraph, it's just that the section, the methodology or the method. So you must have the subsection. For example, here will be the process of selecting elements for evaluation, the process of selecting criteria for objective participant, data collection instruments and procedure, and data analysis. The P will be the process, the P will be capital letter. Okay, then remember what I said about the outline. So this is the outline. So as I said before, this is your content in research design, what you're going to write. Okay, in sample for participant, what you're going to write, because this one, you need to do this one, right? And then we're going to look at this one. So we're going to look at the first draft would be the methodology. Here would be this section describe. It can go for, if you feel that, I think that it's okay to write sentence by sentence. This section describe the procedure. It also explain the participants and instrument, the research design included qualitative and quantitative research method. We use multiple methods. Usually this section describes, the verb will be simple present tense and it's explained. And then if you look at the sentence, it is in the past because we're using past tense because we are describing something in the past. It then then from sentences, put it together, it becomes a paragraph. Okay. Then when you become paragraph, the same thing, right? Remember we have the subsection. From the sample, right? We do something like this, sentence by sentence, right? And then put it in writing. So let's say this is the process, right? Selecting elements for evaluation. So this one would be one paragraph, right? And data collection, we use two data collection methods, closed-ended questionnaire Then remember, after obtaining the data, right? So this one you have to write in paragraph. And data analysis. If you look at data analysis, the quantitative data gathered through questionnaire were analyzed in the past, right? Okay, so in the past, we'll first transcribe and look at this one. Then we try to find some patterns because the writer used Creswell. Then the data were reduced. The interpreted data were then validated by the researchers. Okay, so this is the sample that I took from one of the articles. All right. Okay, and then this is the end of my presentation, because I believe the rest you would ask. Okay, first, what you need to do would be you need to read at least 5 articles in your target journal. Okay, and definitely, let's say for example, you got to determine, do not write. First of all, you need to find the journal. What is your target journal? Wish at least one journal, because you're going to send one. You cannot send the same article to many other journals, so that is not ethical. Find one, right? And then when you find one, read at least 5 articles. Because why? Because you want to see the language and the style of the journal, right? Because sometimes the tips given, the instruction given to the author in the instruction to author, but sometimes it's not stated. But if it is implied, how do you know that's a standard procedure? Because when you read the 5 articles, they will be giving you what will be the standardized language style. Do they write in active or passive voice? Do they use, let's say, simple past tense or simple present, right? And what about the transition? And sometimes the transition, if you don't like Manchester Facebook, what you can do would be, you know, that if you have these 5 articles, look at each article. How do authors use the transition? What you need to do would be, if you want to come up with your own, just remember, cut, copy, paste that. At least you remember these are the transition used. Just for your purpose, okay? And you must remember, when you are writing that particular article, your intended reader will be the editors, the reviewer. First, you must get through the editor, because the editor would see whether it fits, whether the article fits the journal. Then if it fits the journal, the editor will give to the reviewer. And then the reviewer would give a lot of comments, a lot of feedback, okay? And remember, because they know who are the readers. Usually, whenever I review articles, what I do would be the same thing. I would read articles in that particular journal. Then I would know what will be the members of who are the readers, and what are the editors looking for. Okay, and then whenever you write methodology section, what you need to do would be ask fellow writers, because we have so many people here. Do not ask your team members, your research team members, because they are familiar with your research. If it's possible, you would have someone outside someone external members who do not know your research and read. Okay, do they understand your method? Right? Is it clear to them? And if possible, ask them, okay, tell me, can you describe my procedure? Right. And then definitely they would give you comments. So if you ask the team members to comment, they know the research, because when we are familiar with something, we thought, we say it out, we have verbalized our thoughts in that particular section, because we are familiar with the research. But in actuality, we forgot certain elements, right? And you must remember, in methodology section, you have to remember what is necessary, what is not necessary. A procedure that is known to everybody, you don't have to put it there, right? And then you have to be the editor, the language editor. You have to look at, if let's say, for example, if you look at the words, you know, they can find, some of us, we have our favorite word. My favorite word would be describe. So I would use describe. So what I need to do would be I would just open my word and then I would find the word describe. And I would say a lot of the word describe, 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 describe. So what do you do? Right. And then I don't want people to say, oh, who's the writer, Dr. Describe. So what you need to do will be go to Google, synonym, find the word describe. So you would do that one, the transition. Look at the transition, right? The transition, you know that the transition would connect sentences to sentences, paragraph to paragraph. So ask yourself, what is the effect? What is the function? And the spelling. You must remember one thing, spelling, some journals, as remember someone said just now, we must have a standard. So use that standard. If you're using American spelling, use American spelling. If you're using British spelling, then British, right? Or British English or American English. Then ask yourself this hard question. Would you publish this article? If let's say if it's written, is there? You have done the beautification beautification part. It looks professional. It has a let's say face validity, everything. Ask yourself this hard question. Would you publish this article or would you be proud of this article when it's published? Right. And then if you say that yes, I'm ready to publish, send the article. All right. And then wait for the reviewer. I love reviewer because why? Because they are able to show me or to pinpoint, to highlight my weaknesses. And they are very frank and because they're very professional about their job. So I like the feedback. So if you receive the feedback, I know that rejection is very hard. So if you feel that you can't take it, put the rejection letter or it's not rejection letter. If it's rejected, they will give you comment because you want the comments. From the comments, you would improve your article and you can find other journals. So if the rejection letter is very harsh, what you need to do, we put it in the drawer first and then celebrate. You are being rejected. Rejection is a form of feedback, and then come back the next day and go through the rejection one by one. They will be pinpointing you. Your literature review is not current. Your study, where's the validity, where's the reliability, is it trustworthy? So you know that you missed that one. Improve, modify is free, and revise your article. I think yes. I think that's it. So this is the references, and thank you very much. I'm Latisha Asmaak Shafie. I'm from APB. Thank you very much, everybody. So I would like to thank Puan Amni, PM Dr. Nurul Haniza, and definitely our Dr. Naginda and Dr. Aslinda.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Latisha. Okay, this is a very useful session. Good, very good information and knowledge, and it will be very helpful when we want to send our next article in the target journals.
Dr. Aslinda, the point I have to remind myself whenever I say to people, please write. Sometimes I do forget to write. Yes, please write. The method section would be easy because it's you know what to do. So just use your template, just write one bit by bit, and then rewrite, then put in the transition, put in the verb, look at it, right, and then ask yourself, okay, is it clear? Ask someone to. I mean, you can do like this. You can ask, for example, I could ask Dr. Aslinda to look at my method, and then Dr. Aslinda could look at can give her method, right? And then we'll be looking that one. So we'll be commenting, right? So the point would be, as I said before, write. If you don't write, okay, methodology section won't appear. I'm telling myself.
Okay, Doctor. Normally, how long that you will take just to focus on the methodology session? I mean, maybe 1 or 2 days. How long will
Yes.
it take?
The most important thing will be, Dr. Aslinda, write the content first, what you want to write. So put it there because once you are there, when you can see the flow, it's easy to write. Because why? Because your mind is not cluttered. The most important thing when you write, you need a sound and clear mind. Because what? If masa itulah you nak tulis method apa ya, research apa, it takes a long time. So might be today, tak payah today, what you need to do will be just write the template, the content dulu. Write the content dulu. Write the templates pun ni. Okay. And then let's say for example, tengok my ATP, right? Tak best. My ATP is not doing well. I'm not doing well. Marah kat bos kan. Guna that I always advise everyone to write. Use writing as the shield. Bila marah, tulis. Bila gembira, tulis. Bila sedih, tulis. Right. Anything, tulis. Right. You need to write.
Always.
Yes, that's the shield. That's the shield. Right. When you're frustrated, let's say for example, if you think Dr. Latisha, I'm talking too much, right. It can be a song, it can be anything, right? And another thing would be, I know that sometimes you are stuck. So what you need to do would be, I have this. Can I give another tip, Dr. Aslinda?
Sorry, Doctor?
Can I give tips? But this is not regarding the methodology section.
Please do so, Doctor.
Okay. Let's say, for example, if you're stuck with methodology section. Okay, put it there, write one sentence there, stop. Go to the next section, literature review. When you're stuck with that one, come back to methodology section. And then when you start that one, go to another one. Another one would be, don't just write articles, journal articles. You got to go to another discipline, might be creative writing. You write poems. When you write poems, and then come back to this one. When there will be a crossing between the genre, it would make sure, it would, like say, for example, it makes your brain more functioning and you'll be able to write. Another thing, go and exercise, go jogging, running. When you run, put a piece of paper, a small note, or your handphone, put a handphone. When you're jogging, talk to yourself. Critical methodology, the section, the research design, talk to yourself, right? Because you have the phone, the smartphone. And then you know that voice can be turned into written form. Then you would have that one. If, let's say, for example, if you want, sometimes people like to talk. So just talk to yourself. You don't want to write, talk to yourself. And another one would be use pen and pencil. I mean, paper, traditional paper, because why? It's easier for you. Right.
Okay, Doctor. Is it okay if you can share your slide in PDF form? Boleh ke, Doctor?
Yeah, boleh. But can I give me this weekend to make it more presentable? Would that be okay? And I give it to Puan Amni. Would that be okay?
Yes, should be no problem.
Yes, PDF. No, there's no problem. As I said before this sharing session, because I want people to write more. Write more. Method section is easy. You know what to do. Macam ni je, kacang je. Just that let's say we don't have time. So as I said before, write one sentence per day or per hour, or any emotion. I mean, if you are in the car, you can say it. You can transcribe, say it, record, and then transfer it into written words. Then I'm sure that you're driving, right? You can talk to yourself. You'll be saying that, okay, my research design, I'm doing the researcher use qualitative or anything. It's not, sometimes everything, sometimes we have a jumble or mix. I mean, our mind is clouded with a lot of things. So you need to have some sort of structure.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Latisha. Okay, for participants, I have posted the form, attendance form, and also please give your feedback as well at the chat.
Dr. Linda, I would like to I would like to thank everybody because of this session. I managed to revise some of the points. I remember some of the things, which is good.
Okay,
Right. Thank you very much.
okay. So I open. If there are any questions from the participant, please do so. Any question?
So if there's question, what you can do would be just email me. You know my email, they email me, right? As I said to my student, well, to my friends, well, we have to keep talking to each other, right? So we have to collaborate. So it would be handy if let's say, for example, if you have your tip on how you write, that would be lovely.
Okay, doktor. So you can share your email dekat chat box ni. Is it?
Okay, chat box, yeah.
Saya
Okay.
email doktor di chat box. Is it okay?
Okay, I type it dah.
Oh,
Boleh.
Okay. So participants, you can have a look if there's any question in the future. What you can do is that you can directly email Dr. Latisha, and insyaAllah doktor will respond, right, doktor?
Yes, of course. It's nice to help people, right? So I always believe that when you share your experience, your knowledge, and then the knowledge will be increased. So I hope so. And thank you very much, Dr. Aslinda.
Okay, and thank you very much to have you today,
All
Dr.
right.
Latisha. Okay, Alhamdulillah. So I guess there may be no more questions. Okay,
Okay.
maybe if they have question, then they can email doctor directly, and you
Okay, sure.
as well. So I think for today's session, we have come to our end.
All
Okay.
right.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you very much for today's session. Thank you for your time, for your
You're most welcome. Thank you, Ratan Aginda. Right, and thank you, Puan Amni, for texting me, for reminding me a lot of things. Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Renew Social Creativity and Innovation. Right, I hope that we'll be writing a lot. We'll be seeing one another. Thank you, Research Nexus.
okay.
You're most welcome, Dr. Azul. Right. Okay, happy writing. So remember this weekend, start writing methodology section. So Monday, everything done.
Inshallah.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay. You're
Assalamualaikum.
most welcome. Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much, everybody. Assalamualaikum. Have a good salam sejahtera. Have a good time. Right. And let's have lunch.
Okay, thank you.
Waalaikumsalam.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, Doctor.